Yes, hi everyone, and thank you for listening to this episode. Welcome to the Black British Parent podcast, and today we have an amazing guest, Kay Johnston, who is a retired head teacher.
Yeah.
Yep. And an advocate for home education.
Absolutely.
And has had experience with attempting to build your own free school.
That's right, yeah.
But we're going to get into that
Yes.
a little bit later. But before we begin, I just wanted to kind of, I'm a bit of a film and TV buff. So I like to ask, a few questions. So one of them, what if you have one in mind, what's your favorite film or TV show all time and why?
I mean, a film that I would sit down and watch, even though I know all the words, because it's just so silly, is Coming to America. I can sit down and watch. Anytime it comes on, I'll sit and watch it.
Do you know, high five. High five. That's one of my favorite ones too. Yeah.
It's so silly. I mean, the sequel was okay, but the first one is always going to be fantastic. You know every word. You know it, but it's just great.
That's great, because that's just so me too. Because I asked my daughter earlier on, I was like, what should I? She said, Coming to America. I'm like, maybe not, but you just said Coming to America. That's awesome.
Coming to America is just so silly.
Yeah, that's great. That's wicked. It's one of my favorites too. And being able to introduce my children to it when they were older enough to obviously get the jokes, but yeah. So, if you don't mind, can you kind of share your journey and your experience of being a head teacher, and perhaps some of the challenges you may face, like providing good quality, high quality education to all children, but obviously Black British children in particular?
Okay, I mean, well, my journey, I started from working my way up as a newly qualified teacher and literally going through the ranks. And I mean, I was lucky with the head teachers that I had, predominantly white women, who gave me the chance, that saw my potential and gave me the chance to step into middle leadership and then into senior leadership. So I'm ever grateful for them. I wouldn't name them now, but I mean, they have been instrumental in my journey, and they taught me to, and from then I just flew. But I mean, from the time I got into schools, I realized that something was wrong, that the curriculum wasn't meeting the needs. The Black children were just, they were always like on the periphery, and there was nothing there. And, I'd been thinking that something needs to change, and it wasn't until I was at Selhurst that I realized, no, we have to do something, because, I'm getting older, and, I won't be doing this forever, but if this is some kind of legacy. So I actually got a team together, and this is before the free school, and said, no, we need to do something because it's not working. And this was a boys' school, and there was, the curriculum was just not exciting. Black boys, white boys, it was not exciting.
Is this primary or secondary?
This is secondary.
Okay, yeah.
And I'd actually gone to the head and said, listen, we have a redundant room that used to be a DT room. Why don't we strip that out and we can get somebody from perhaps Croydon College to come once a week and do some like electrical engineering with the children. Couldn't even on that, or no, we need some more, because boys, you need a hands-on curriculum to keep them engaged. And I felt that we were failing them big time. You looked at some of the subjects they were doing, and you knew that when they got into the world of work, that would just seem like play school. They just weren't being prepared. So I got a team together, and we used to meet at my home every Saturday afternoon, putting things together and whatever.
These children from school?
No, within the team. I got a team
okay,
yes,
sure.
that's right. And we used to meet at my home every Saturday afternoon and go through, and we didn't even have a name for it. We just used to call it like the New School Project. And this went on for a few months, and then one of the colleagues and I they decided to take it to Croydon, and we showcased it with the Director of Education for Croydon and his second in charge, and they thought, oh, this is fantastic. But then they offered us jobs to go and sell the concept to other schools, but they didn't want to take it on. And then say, well, this is a waste of time, because when you go into schools, they will listen to you, they'll be all ears, and then they'll just, as soon as you leave, they just carry on from where they left off. And so I put it on the back burner until 2010, when the Tories came back in. And Michael Gove announced the free school. And then I started getting a whole set of messages from, oh, now you can implement this, or whatever. And I mean, I'd sent it on to Lord Herman Ousley at the House of Lords, and he said, this is exactly what Croydon needs, because it was a holistic approach, and, starting from the age of 3 right through until they were 19. And then we thought, okay, from nursery to, that care package from nursery to industry, right into their first jobs. And, so that the children from the age of 11 would be assigned to a mentor from the world of work. We didn't want mentors who just came in and fired up everybody, got them all excited and then disappeared. So they were literally assigned to mentors, and at Key Stage 4, they would be assigned to mentors that matched their aspirations, so that they would have a chance to, from the end of year 9, to start work shadowing, and then work experience, and you got the parents involved, and And the thing is, I changed the definition of what community school is, because community schools, you see some schools, whatever community school, and it simply means they're serving children in that community. And I said, no, we need to go back. Community school must serve as the whole community, not when school is over, then yes, you might have the Chinese community come in and do Mandarin. So that's not what it's all about. You have a lot of children, and so we started a class on Saturday mornings for parents who had left school with no qualifications, and when life gets in the way, then they just keep on going. And my brother-in-law, he was an EAL teacher, so he came in and he worked with those parents who had English as a second language, and then in the end we taught them sort of employability skills, and we got 4 of them into work.
Goodness.
So I thought, this is what community school is. So we said we need to run a different curriculum provision for parents to come, and section off a part of the school so that you don't have them mixing. So that the parents are coming in, because, we've got 2 or 3 hours a day or whatever, you can come in and get something. So we had 4 categories: academic, vocational, aesthetic, and sports, so that they could access, something like. And I said, that is what a community school is. I said, when you have got parents who are benefiting from the same school as their children, they will support that school. Because, they will say to their children, I don't want you to wait until you're 40 and then to go back to school like what I have. So you've got to get it right now. And then, of course, though I personally didn't need that extra support, if little Johnny knew that mom was going to be in school, that's right. Yeah. So there was also that business. So that is what a community school is. It serves the whole community, and they buy into it from day one, so that they have stake in it. They're stakeholders, and they really do have a stake because they're getting something out of it. And so that was the definition of it. Now, with regards to the mentoring program, and my colleague and I, we went out and we actually recruited about 60 mentors of, a diverse sort of career backgrounds, from horticulturists, park gardeners. We had doctors, we had different types of in the law in industry. We had eye consultants, chemists, shopkeepers, the different restaurant, the types of restaurant. We went and we spoke with them, and we got them all mechanics, everything. So whatever a child wanted to be, he could have that sort of mentoring. And then it was also global. Goodness. Because yes, we started reaching out globally, so that if, for example, let's say a barrister didn't have the space in his office to accommodate a young person, at the end of college, university, or whatever, but he had a friend who was also practicing, let's say in Trinidad or in Ghana, then that's where your first work placement would be.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
It just opened up the whole world to these. It actually had arranged in Ghana work experience between the 2 weeks and 3 months in community farming, agriculture, accounting. I can't remember the 3 or 4 things. So that an accommodation was assured as well for the young people to be able to go out and do that. So, while what differs from the education system we have here. The DFE zone is very insular, deals with what happens in the UK. And it said there's a whole world out there that needed to be opened up. You have some children who don't even leave their postcode. So the whole idea that, yes, the whole world is out there for you to go and explore and enjoy or whatever. And we would support that young person for the first 3 months while they got their feet under the table. So that was the plan.
I knew how
Yeah.
amazing and phenomenal work you were doing, but I didn't realize it was to that scale.
Yeah.
What you was doing.
Yeah.
So before considering the free school and the community school, how long was you in teaching for?
About 37 years at that point.
So you have a lifetime of experience of the education system.
Yeah.
And what did and didn't work, as you've obviously just gave us a
Yeah.
very detailed understanding of, which I'm sure many parents and many teachers can really relate and perhaps would feel validated and seen by what you just shared in terms of that experience. They probably, obviously, we've all heard this before in many different areas where education is concerned, but to hear what you're saying as previously being head teacher, and perhaps considering a whole different approach for education for young people, particularly boys who needs hands-on. It's interesting that we haven't in the education system considered those things yet still, even having someone like yourself who's tried it out to somewhat degree. You applied to have for you put in an application for a free school, right?
No, 4 times.
4 times.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, my question was, how did the rejection of your proposals for this free school, how did that impact your career, and what lessons did you...
I mean, I had to take the first time, I submitted the application was September 2010. And when we and that was the Department of Education's first trial, if you like. So the application form was a little booklet, well, I would say a little booklet, it's about 9 or 10 pages of A4 size, and you had word restrictions or character restrictions or whatever. And we'd had, the local newspapers were covering it, and also the independent.
Word restrictions.
That's right, yes, they were following the journey. So we had 2 public consultation meetings, and we had lots of people who were signed up. So I submitted the first application in September 2010 with the numbers on roll, and we wanted an all-through school because we felt that if we took them at secondary school, then there's a lot of repair that we would have to do that they hadn't covered. So we wanted them from prime. So we were recruiting from reception and also in year 7. So that we're building on that, and then eventually the primary school would eventually get up to secondary standard.
That's a big task, though. That's
right, yeah. And the format for the school was that, because I mean, I'm trained to teach from primary right through to FE, and I've done the whole one. But a primary school teacher has the same kind of training. You have one subject and you have a subsidiary subject. My subjects are English and PE. But if I went to teach full-time in primary school, I have to teach everything. So, when the children come in year 7, you could actually determine what was the strength of their year 6 teacher, because that's where they're strongest. And you found that a lot of science teachers didn't opt for primary education because they couldn't really practice.
Yes.
So I thought we need to address that. So what the model I came up with was that from year 3, they would be taught by subject teachers, so that they got used to it. And because it was one school, we have all the expertise coming in, so that they would be taught French. The French actually started from reception, where when they came in, everything is written in 2 languages. Even the TAs, we would have, bilingual. I'm just using French as one of it. And they would have subject teachers for all of the subjects, so that they got the specialist teaching. They would have a science lab, and they would be, the head of science of the school would be overseeing in the primary and the secondary. And then at the first we were going to go for a boys' school. And then the parents came and said, well, what about the girls? So I said, okay. So the first one, Diaspora High, was, that was a boys' school, and then we went to Diaspora Diamond, because I looked at the Diamond approach, where you had, because boys and girls do have different learning styles. So it was separating them, provided we had fairly equal numbers intake of boys and girls, so that from year 3, they would be taught, the boys and girls taught separately. All the way through until year 6, or, as a matter of fact, the only time they would be co-ed would be art, music, and drama, because we don't need a boy prancing around in a dress. This is before this trans nonsense, but anyway, we don't need, if you've got girls in the school, then you use them. And of course, the break times, they mingle, etc. But what I didn't want later on into that, let's say, for example, if a boy wanted to do fashion design, he must be free to do so, because you've got lots of designers who are men. But if the peer pressure when they're in a mixed class, oh, what do you want to do that for? And if you had a girl who wanted to be a mechanic, she must be free to do so. So that was the thinking behind separating them. And so that's the Diamond approach. So they were co-ed only at the top and the bottom, and the rest was, so
that's brilliant. That's beautiful. Yeah, that's genius.
So that was that's for Diamond. So that was the plan, and take them all the way through. They'd have the mentoring and everything else. But my concern was at year 9, at the end of year 9, when they choose their options, and you see this in several schools, and year after year it's the same thing. And what parents don't understand is that schools will give the options for the expertise that they have in-house. If your child wants to do psychology and they don't have a psychology teacher, psychology will not be offered. And then you have an option blocks, and you might find the tool to choose 2 from each option block. But sometimes the 2 subjects you want are in one option block and it doesn't appear in the other. So you end up with so you get children every single year ending up with a string of subjects, and you say, well, what are you going to do with it? Why have you chosen this one? Oh, well, I like the teacher. There's nothing else. My friends are all doing it, and for the wrong reasons. And so they go through a program of study, doing things that they're not interested in. They don't know where it's going to lead. They take their GCSEs with varying degrees of success, and they come out and you think, oh, yeah, I finished school, and what do I do?
There's no plan. Yeah,
so I thought we need to have a curriculum that actually was geared towards a career. The second time around, this is in 2011, July, when we got the second rejection email to say that they wouldn't proceed with the application because they weren't sure that we had children of relevant ages in reception in year 7. So I rang, rather than reply to the email, I rang and spoke to someone. I said, well, I've actually got the enrollment forms. I can bring them down to the DFE. I can be there in half an hour. And he said, no, we don't want to see them. I said, well, if you've written that you're not sure that we have got children of relevant ages in the school that parents have enrolled for September, and you don't want to see the evidence, where does that leave us? And he sort of
what is children of relevant age? I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, we had children for a reception class and we had children for year 7, because those were the 2, sort of enrollment areas.
So what age did they want you to have?
Rising. Well, I don't know what they were talking about. I think it was just, in retrospect, it was just a silly excuse. That's, so the conversation ended, and you don't want to see the evidence. So I said, well, where did that leave us? And it just kind of like petered out. So I tried to get through to, I won't call any names, obviously, but I tried to get through to this other member at the Department of Education, and every time I called, I was told he was either in a meeting or he was on holiday. And then the education editor at the newspaper that was following rang for an update, and I said, listen, I've been trying to get through to this person, and I've heard he's on holiday. And he said, okay, what's the number? And I gave him the number, and he called and spoke to the person. 20 minutes after I had been told he was on holiday. So he asked for an update and said, well, what's happened? They said, oh, they're having somebody senior look at it, and they will get back to us at the end of August. Meanwhile, now I was then contacted by the head of the New Schools Network, who'd been following the story in the newspaper, and she invited us in. So we went in, and she looked at it. She said, "Okay, the DFE likes everything in table form, so let's put the numbers in a table," and we sent it. When we put it in a table, we realized, hang on, we are oversubscribed in the reception. We have got 75% of our intake for year 7, 1 year ahead. So we sent it in. We heard absolutely nothing. The last day of August, I got a very terse reply from the House of Lords to say that they looked at the figures, but they have, the figures are exactly the same numbers that were submitted in May. We told that the figures, they can't consider it because these figures have come after the closing date. So I thought, okay. What do we do? See, this is getting very tiresome. You're beginning now to see a bit of an agenda.
So do you think that there was that was the plan to tie you or wear you out?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, and come up with one silliness after another. So we met again as a team. Okay, what do we do? Do we try again third time around? By this time now, the application form is becoming more substantial. They need a lot of data, and local data, national data. Fine, nothing without, as teachers in school, we're used to working with data anyway. So I did the third application. And I remember that had to be in, just after one of the half terms, probably in May half term. And my colleague came over and she sort of like, talking, and I'm on the computer typing up or whatever, and it had to be submitted by the following Tuesday after half term. So a lot of work went in there. 114 pages of data and goodness knows what else, plus the application and the curriculum plans and everything. So the Sunday before, she worked with me Monday to Friday at my home, and the Sunday, my husband decided to do an update on the computer, and the entire application disappeared into cyberspace.
Oh gosh!
I thought, no, this is not happening.
Neck at this point.
This is not happening.
Not that I'm advocating for.
Oh my gosh!
Any
We
violence.
tried every which way, can't find this application.
Oh
I thought,
man.
I can't say anything. How do I say this to Michael? We've been working on this for months. Last week, she's dictating, where's it gone to? Can't find it anywhere. Of course, you can't find anybody to come out. We didn't know what to start. So I thought, okay, I am going to have to start again.
Gosh.
So I literally threw my husband out of the room, got back on the computer, pulled up a fresh application and started. And then I sort of like got into a rhythm and, just closed the door and got on and I had a really strange experience because, when somebody is standing behind you, you can feel that presence. And I was alone in the room. Everybody's gone to bed, and this is gone 1 a.m. As a matter of fact, gone 2. And I felt like my husband was standing behind. I said, "Oh, ease up, man. I need to concentrate." And I looked around, doors closed. I'm alone in the room. I thought, this is a bit strange. So I turned back around again, and as I turned back to the computer, I could feel a presence behind me. And as the presence got close to me, all the words kept popping in my head, and I just typed it up. And I'd finished at 3:45 a.m. I thought, right, that's it. 114 pages, back home, went to bed.
Goodness me, something was guiding you, man.
And I didn't even worry to post it. We took it to the Department of Education. I can't even remember what this silly. Oh yes, they said that the application was not substantial or some nonsense like that. So by this time now, because we had parents now who
This is
had
what your fourth application.
This is the full thing with it. It had major gaps. And I
That's
thought,
what they
we
said.
have covered everything, So one of the parents who had enrolled her son since he was 8, waiting to get into school in year 7 at 11, decided, no, this is on grounds of racism. So she said, okay, I am going to apply for legal aid, and I'm going to take them on. So she did. I remember coming home from work, and the court bundle came. And the DFE's putting off in the case that this application has got major gaps. And I said, by this time now, we had, I'd got onto I had applied for a place on the New School Network development program. There were 300 and something applicants for 20 spaces, and we got one of them. The interview with the New School Network was actually more stringent than the one at the DFE, because we were interviewed at the DFE, the whole team. And it was funny because...
So you would interview by the DFE?
That's right, yeah.
And they were okay with what you were doing? Or...
Yeah, that's right. So at the end of the interview, to be told that it had major gaps, I'm thinking, well, do you invite people for interview with major gaps? You know,
that doesn't make sense.
There was some disturbing bits about the way in which they spoke to me, because my team had black and white. One of my colleagues, her head teacher was part of the team, because he was retiring that year, and he thought, right, this is something, and he had been a successful head teacher of a boys' school for 20 years. So they were, perhaps if we put all these tables together, so we're being interviewed down at that end, and he and another one, both white, interviewed down at the end. And listening to the way that they spoke to them was a whole lot different from the way they spoke to me and my colleague. And for example, he looked at it and he says, oh, this mentoring scheme you got here, you never pull that off, that's not realistic. And I thought, okay. Actually, we've got 60 mentors already. He looked through it. He said, oh, your curriculum plans, your policies are very detailed. I said, thank you. Where did you copy it from?
Copy it?
Copy it?
Cheap.
He said, well, they're very detailed. You must have copied them from somewhere. And I thought, wow. I sat down at my dining table for 3 weeks to put these together. I said, are you assuming that they're so detailed that it's beyond my
capability? Yeah.
So there was no answer to that. And then, one of the perks that we had from being on the development program, every Friday afternoon we used to go up to the New School Network offices, then in Victoria, and we had the services of an education consultant and a financial consultant. So my colleague was, as head of MAT, she was doing the financial plan, and I was doing the main, but the two had to mirror each other. And he'd suggested that we have a contingency budget of about £50,000. He said, if something goes wrong in the middle of winter, let's say the boiler breaks down, you can get started while you're waiting. So this is the interview, they're looking at it. He said, oh, £50,000 you've got here. You can't be taking government money to send children on trips. You think we were a charity or what? And at that point, honestly, I thought I was going to leap across the table. And I thought, why are you speaking to us like that? Meanwhile, further down, it was all very deferential and everything else, and they were just speaking to us like. And then came the crux of it. One of them said, this is a formal interview. What's your black school going to do that our schools are not doing? And at that point, I thought...
Wait, are you kidding me? I don't understand why, what is the point of such a statement or comment, because you've applied 4 times in a row and over a period of years, and I'm listening to you mentioning all these people that was working with you to make this work, different races. Everyone believed in what your vision is, hence why you had that happening. It was a global project. And this is what this person is saying to you, opposed to supporting and backing. It makes you wonder, like, what is the priority of the so-called education system? Hey family, we hope you're enjoying the show. If you want to stay up to date with all things Black British Parent, we've got the perfect way for you to do just that. Join our mailing list and be the first to know about new episodes, exciting news, and upcoming events. It's super easy to sign up. Just head over to our website and into your email. Don't miss out on the latest from Black British Parent. Join our community today. Now, back to the show.
Well, I mean, once the parent decided to take the DFE on, they had an oral hearing at the High Court in March that year, or the following year, actually. And the DFE were losing. So in the last 5 minutes, the barrister threw out that they had changed the way that they reviewed applications in the light of the issues that came up, what she was doing on grounds of racism. That's right. Case. And so the judge approved for a full judicial review on the 10th of June that year. I thought, right. So they had now to produce the court bundle. Now, they claimed that the application had major gaps. That year, it was an application that had 114 pages. When the court bundle came, the Department of Education put into the court the first application that they were asked to discard in September 2010. This is 3 years later. And when I asked, well, why did you do that? I said, the relevant application of 114 pages, you did not submit that. You submitted
The
one that you were told to discard. You didn't even put in the one that was, because I've told you, when I sent in, that's the first application, the little booklet that I'm talking about.
But the developed one, they completely
And I said, well, why did you do that? No answer. Absolutely no answer. But anyway, the court bundle came, and I came in from work one afternoon with like 200 pages, and I thought, oh my God, what on earth are we taking on here? So I got up the next morning, the Saturday morning, just sat down reading, and I'm not seeing anything that was really daunting, until you came to a page that was digitally blacked out. And I thought, this is strange. Couldn't read it, so I switched on the lamp, put it under the lamp, and I could read it. I thought, okay. And it seemed like a conversation between two or more people at the DFE. And on the reason for rejection, it said, I recommend that this school not be approved. It's not for the local community, it's for the Black community. The proposers are African Caribbean, and all the mentors are Black. They had no information on our mentors. It was just an assumption. The second
But
one,
even if that was the case, what is wrong with having a school set for African
that's right.
Caribbean children?
Even if that was the case, yeah, that's right, yeah. And then the second one said, they have no knowledge of the local labor market. This is all the data that we had, because we had to go on ONS and get all the vocational education is not needed in Lewisham. And then the third one said, no doubt they will be calling on their friends in the media to shout racism on their behalf. And the last one said, actually, the team scored comfortably higher than many other teams.
What?
Yep. I've still got those documents, yeah.
I would love to see them. No one else can see, but I would love to see. You're kidding me.
Yeah.
I'm getting goosebumps because this is really, I'm smiling a lot because I cannot believe. I'm constantly blown away every time I hear this because I hear different aspects of it and the depth of it. And it's just, the thing that gets me is the concern of it being for Black children specifically, even though it wasn't, even though it was a
we teachers, we teach whoever comes through the door.
But the reason why I draw back to that point is that right now, they are quick to talk about our Black children and what they are from what they're not doing and what they should and shouldn't be doing and what parents should and shouldn't be doing. But yet still, our children spend a lot of time in the school education system. And I believe that if I home educate my children, if there were schools like what you had proposed, I would have been quite content with my child going to school and myself doing whatever it is I need to. Do you see what I mean? So it's very angering, frustrating. I can only imagine what it's been like for yourself and your team. What would you say that you had learned from this experience?
I think that, now, I've seen we've several years ago now, and I can look back now, I can see they saw the potential, but they didn't want our faces, and my colleague looks like me.
Okay.
They didn't want our faces to showcase something like that. Okay. They wanted their own, because, we were invited to a meeting where there was, they then also invited the CEO of an education trust. And I was told to sit on a particular chair when we got in. I remember it was a huge circular table, and I was told, sit on that chair. And I thought, well, you've got about 12 chairs, so you sit on that chair. And then I realized that was the only one with an A4 document. And as soon as I sat down, I was handed a pen and told to sign. I said, no, I need to read what I'm signing. I said, no, just sign it. I said, no, I need to read it. And it was the education plan that I'd written, stapled to a contract that upon signing it, it became their property within 10 months.
That was going to be my next question. How did they steal your curriculum? And that's exactly how they attempted to do that. Telling you to sign something without reading it.
Yeah.
So what happened? Did you sign it?
No, I didn't. I refused to
Good.
sign it. I took, my sister and husband came along as well, and my sister said, well, why do you want his work? And he said, oh, she's got some good ideas, sort of kind of water. We'll have to tidy it up.
So the same, I'm just, sorry, again, don't mean to cut you, but the same curriculum that they rejected 4 times,
Yeah, the same.
told you it was for a black school,
Yeah.
they've got this document for you to sign it over to them.
Became their property within 10 months. And then one of them said, this is too big for you. Why don't you just go and open a little supplementary school somewhere? And he waved his hands like, I thought, I don't believe what I'm hearing. Just go and open a little supplementary school somewhere.
How does something like that make you feel?
Because, they're not threatened by supplementary school because the children are back with them Monday to Friday. And so they just thought that is all we're good for. We just provide a supplementary education. They don't care what it's done.
Because supplementary education has done amazing things.
That's
for
right,
our
yeah.
children
Well, my mom and I, opened supplementary school. It was started by my dad on the North Peckham estate. So I worked along there, so I know the value of it. When we first opened it on the North Peckham estate, my mom and I, we sat in that room, on our own. We had everything all set up, and then one afternoon the door opened, and one woman said, what's going on in here? Mom spoke to her. She said, okay, I'll go and get my kids. When that supplementary school closed many years later, there were over 100 children on roll. And I taught there twice a week for 8 years until my kids came along, and I had to, as a matter of fact, when my son was there, my mom used to take my son, and there was a travel cot in her office. So he was used, they grew up there, the first 2. But I did that for 8 years.
So
from 4 till 6. Yeah.
What you done that for 8 years? You were saying?
Yes, I did. My mom. Yeah, but my mom carried on long after I left.
That's amazing. That kudos to your family and that's obviously a part of the reason how you ended up in the career that you're doing and advocating the way that you do for our children. So the what happened? You said your sister and brother.
My sister and husband came along.
Your brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And what was that process once you realised what they were trying to do?
I terminated the meeting when we left.
Okay.
So I refused to sign it. So
And after?
yeah, that's right. That was the November, and then the January, I got straight after Christmas, or straight after the New Year, I got a call from someone at a college in Northland. He said he was a member of SLT at the college, and they had been told that I had devised a plan that would motivate boys. I said, well, who told you? I don't even know that this college exists. And he said, oh, we can't reveal our source, but we'd like to discuss it with you. So I said, well, what's the problem? He said, well, we have a problem with the boys there that we're finding difficult to motivate. So we thought of opening a special provision within the college, and alarm bells started ringing. I said, what they want is to open some kind of PRU-like provision within the college and fling all the black boys in there. That was, I might be doing them a disservice, but that was a thought in my head. So I thought, no, we can't have that. So I said, okay, invited down to come and discuss it with me, and I created some handouts or whatever. And one of them arrived, and I remember it was a Thursday afternoon, and the doorbell rang, and I looked at the clock, 1:10, and there he was, and he came with his laptop, and he showed my husband and I all the visions for the college and all sorts of fancy IT. And then out came a memory stick. Now, if you'd like to put your plan on this stick, now I had it on my iPad, which of course had no facility for that. In any case, I wasn't going to do that. So I said, no, I'm not going to do that. He said, no, but he said, well, we want to take it back to the college and discuss it, because what you're saying here makes a lot of sense. So I said, I can come into the college and speak to your senior team if you like. No, they didn't want that. We had tea, cake, sandwiches, coffee, and 2:10, 3:10, 4:10. Kids come in from school and think, wrong, they can't smell any dinner cooking, everybody. By this time now, my husband is getting really cheesed off, and he's sitting down in the corner reading the same page in the newspaper over and over, and this would not leave. 6:10, 7:10.
That's very
intimidating.
I'm getting
tired. And this memory stick came out like 40 times, and it was You know, a lot of flattery. Oh, you were born to do this. You were created for this. And I'm thinking, this is like the fox and the cheese, you know, just keep flattering and then, oh, well, if you'd like to put your, you know, plan on this thing. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. So my husband said, well, wouldn't that be intellectual theft? He said, oh, no. I lecture in law, so it wouldn't be. We just want, actually said, I just want to take it back to the senior team, show it to them, and we'll come up with something like it, but not the same. I said, no, I can't do that. And he said, in any case, iPad doesn't have the facility for that. I said, but I've done a handout. I have given you some strategies for motivating boys, and if you want, I can come in and talk to the team. I don't mind, you know, come on one afternoon and talk to the team and give them some strategies, etc. At 10:22 p.m., my husband said, if you don't leave now, you will miss the last train. And that's how. And I think, in retrospect, he was trying to tire us out so that you get so fed up, you just, go on, you know. So left empty-handed. But I mean, I've never heard of this college before, so it was pretty obvious where the information came from. And on top of that, we also had built in for the financial literacy a credit union, so that the children, the intention, we'd start it in our own school, and then we'd start over with the schools in London, and then we'd go nationwide. So that, you know, very often, you know, a lot of banks don't take, you know, anything less than £5. I think Monzo takes £1 minimum. So we would do a collection, let's say, every Wednesday. And if all you've got is 5p, that's fine. We collect that 5p, and we bank it. After 2 years, then we could offer micro loans to parents and older children who lived up to £500 at competitive rates, so that they didn't go to these payday loan stuff and all of that. So that was all built into it. Yeah. And so that and then you would have children more or less manning the banking so that they understood how it works. And then in maths lessons, you're looking at percentages and stuff like that, so that they could see their money working, and their parents, you know, so that was all part of it. I remember when I submitted that to the DFE, and Anne and I were invited to a reception just off Horse Guards Parade. And they brought in one who was applying for a free school somewhere in Bristol. And they brought them over and said, can you tell, that financial plan that you've got for the financial literacy? I'd like them to hear this. You know, you're all in this very glitzy, I'm thinking, okay. And then I got a call from the New School Network that somebody wanted to talk to me about the mentoring program. So I went up there Friday afternoon, met this young woman, 29 years old, described herself as the advisor to the current PM at the time. And I thought, wow, this country is being run by kids. But anyway. And she said, yes, I heard about your mentoring program, and I'm very interested in how would it work. And so I described it, and I realized that I'm talking, she's writing. I'm thinking, okay, wow, what's going on? And so I said, oh, by the way, who are you mentoring? She said, well, she'd opened a mentoring company. And so she was very interested when she heard about mine, and she wanted to know more about it. I said, well, who are you mentoring? She said, well, we're mentoring the boys from Eton. I thought, okay. At that point, I thought, there's no more conversation to be had, because, we're talking about 4 kids in Lewisham.
That need it.
And you're talking about Eton.
Children.
So at that point, I stopped
not saying
talking.
They don't need it, but
yeah,
to even
yes, that's right. Yeah. So I remember that I thought this is very funny. You're mentoring the boys from Eton, and you need strategies. It was very bizarre.
That is very bizarre. So with your curriculum moving forward, I remember seeing an article where it looked like that they'd stolen your curriculum. Yeah. And it seemed that it wasn't working in the way that
it was the end of August 2020 when on the news, the last item on the news, it said the Department of Education has announced its exciting new innovation from cradle to career. And I thought, let's rewind that and listen. Because they told us that from nursery to industry, that was it. That was the third application, the rejection. it was far too ambitious for children from disadvantaged backgrounds.
That's what they said to you.
Those were the words. That's the reason for rejection. So I thought, okay, so if from nursery to industry is far too ambitious, but from cradle to career is exciting and innovative, there's some. And they said, we're going to trial this in Bristol for a year, and then it will be rolled out nationwide. I thought, oh, so now it all makes sense. They knew, since that was submitted in 2012 and 2013, when it was beefed up, that they had the potential, but they were not ready to showcase it for
They
themselves.
didn't want a black woman to be doing
I thought, okay. By this time, I've moved on. I'm just doing my own thing. And then I started hearing about the T levels, and I thought, okay, just in case a parent contacts me.
What is a T level?
Government, part of their innovation, and they'd spent £50 million promoting it, this flagship program.
Because when I saw the T level, I didn't understand what it was. I was hoping you got it.
T level. So I thought, okay, I will just let me just familiarize myself with it. Because if a parent says, well, my child's doing the T levels, could you give an hour in the afternoon after school? So I sat down and I started reading through the T levels, and I thought, and as I'm reading it, I know what's coming next, and I thought, this is very strange. And I thought, I could actually feel like my heart racing. I know what's coming next. So I got up, switched on the computer, and I put the two side by side. I said, oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah. They even used the same headings for the curriculum bands. Yeah. I just couldn't believe it. So I thought, well, that is actually the exit point of the plan. The plan starts at the age of 3, and there's a continuous support package. So if you just take out the exit point, it will not be a standalone, because number one, teachers need to be prepared for this, and this would have been something that they've been doing. I didn't write it for the country, I wrote it for myself, because I knew how it was going to work. So I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting. So they duly threw it out to schools, got rid of the BTECs, and said, oh, there's this new innovation. So you had year 10s who started the BTECs now couldn't finish their program because they now got the T level. Teachers were not prepared for the T levels. They didn't have a clue what they did. There was no mentor involvement, nothing. They took out some bits now. And I thought, this is not going to work.
Imagine how many children that's affected.
It is not going to work. And then, so, less than a year later, you start hearing all the disgruntlement, children abandoning the courses, lots of angry teachers in schools up and down the country. And I thought, I knew it was going to fall apart. You can't take something that's a part of a whole, take out some bits and expect it to work. The T levels is the exit point. Well, what they call the T levels with the, but they took the same option banks. They took out some of the subject because they were trying to steer me to go either vocational or academic. And so, oh, this is what schools do. And I said, no, you have to, that's it. And I remembered it, I said, what's the point of being a doctor and you can't put up a shelf? It's building the whole person. So that there was a mixture of, vocational and academic around it. Yeah, that's right, yeah. And they couldn't get their heads around that. So
they didn't want to get their heads around it.
Yeah. But I mean, to disparage something and say, oh, it's far too ambitious, you're going, and then you come up with it a few years, you sit on it and then come out like if this is your new thing. Anyway, fast forward to, when did the Queen die? 2022? The Queen's Jubilee, June. Me and my family were out in the garden. We have a room in the garden. We were having our own tea. And I got up to go indoors, and as I was walking past, the phone was ringing. So I thought, okay, I'll answer. And then it kept on ringing, so I turned back and answered the phone, and this American voice answered and said, we've been trying to get through to you. And they called, this is the company that built my website. And I went to an American company because those in Britain were coming up was far too expensive.
Sorry, say that again.
Yeah, that's right. And he said, well, a British client has approached us and they would like to have your logo, yes,
What?
your logo and the name of your school to open it in September. This was in June.
What about your involvement?
Yeah. June 2022. And I thought, open the school. And the logo, I actually got, it was a child at Selhurst who drew that, because I said, listen, I'm not an artist, but because from the nursery to industry, can you draw a baby's building blocks, a hard hat, and a degree scroll? And I chose the diamond, whatever. And I still have the hand-drawn one, because I sent it on, I scanned it and sent it on to the website company, and they digitized it. And so they decided it will fit very nicely with from cradle to career.
No way.
I just thought, oh my God, this is crazy.
What can you do about something? Have you legally?
I've trademarked it, but I had
Okay.
to spend that weekend
Yes.
trademarking it to block it from being used.
Okay, say no more.
Because I thought, if I hadn't done that, and the thing is, apparently they'd been trying to get through to me for a week, but we've been at a wedding before, and I didn't have, a family wedding. I didn't have the time to, I didn't even know that the phone was ringing. I just thought, if I had heard that the September, the name of my school, it is very unique that I chose, or rather made up, Enterprise Diamond was being opened somewhere, I would have presented myself at that school and caused so much mayhem, I'd probably be behind bars by now and wouldn't even care. I just thought, no, this is crazy. And there was only, nobody else knew about that because that was on the application. Nobody would know about this website company. So yes, there's a lot of but I mean the whole thing, so I walked away from the whole free school thing, and I thought, okay, I'll just get on with my life. It is pretty obvious they don't want anybody looking like me. So they have lots of glossy generic policies where they talk about inclusion, but the practice from art is I thought, fine, I'll just get on with my life. But I, again, got in touch with the same parent who had instigated the judicial review, and that went pear-shaped because 3 weeks before the judicial review, their barrister, the DFE's barrister, got in touch with parents to say that they would like to mediate instead of going to court. And we had to have a full team meeting, and that included, because on my team was also the admissions officer for Cambridge University. So we had to have a full team meeting with everybody to agree with it. And I was said, no, just press ahead for the judicial review, because we've now got that digitally blacked out page that we could whip them with. And the QC, acting on behalf of the parents, said, okay, if you don't agree to mediation, they could throw out that they offered mediation and you refused, and it could, it may not swing in your favor. So I felt that my hands were tied. I came back home and I sent an email off to said, okay, we'll have the mediation. And the parents' barrister said, okay, ask them what are the gaps and can they give you some strategies. So I came home. I remember I had to stay. I was working at a college, and then I was program manager at the college. I had to wait until 8 o'clock before I got home nearly 10 that night. And I sent the email off, and then 2 weeks later, this was a week after the judicial review should have. Meanwhile, we had to now extract from the court, costing tens of thousands of pounds, but we'll have this mediation. An email came to me in response 2 weeks later. Dear Mrs. Johnston, we do not have an agenda. What would you like? Yours sincerely, Mike. And I thought,
what does that mean?
You've asked us to pull out of a judicial review and you don't have an agenda. So what was the mediation all supposed to be all about? You want to mediate and you don't have an agenda.
So you're wasting people's time, basically.
They just wanted to pull out from the judicial review because they would have lost big time, and that would have hit the news all around the country. Yeah. So, I spoke to the barrister. The barrister said, okay, just ask them what are the gaps and give you some strategies. So I immediately, whoever Mike was sitting at his desk, and he just said, agenda, 1, gaps, 2, strategies. That's it, just 2 items. And he gave the date, 25th of June, which was exactly 2 weeks to the day after the judicial review. So, okay. At 4 p.m., we turned up. I took a scribe with me. Meeting was supposed to start at 4. They kept us in reception until 20 past 4. And then we went up. And the first 35 minutes of the meeting, they spent telling us all the strengths The curriculum, the same curriculum that was far
That they
too ambitious.
rejected
This is a strength.
4 times.
And I thought, okay, thank you. What are the gaps? 50 minutes into the meeting, supposed to be a 90-minute meeting, 50 minutes. What are the gaps? Nobody's talking about what the gaps are. And I'm thinking, this is a farce. There were no gaps. They just didn't want to go to the judicial review. By this time, the one who was sitting opposite me, I can see him turning his head, and I don't think he's got a crick in his neck, realized he was just looking at the clock and they were running out of things to say. So I said, okay. Then they said, oh, we don't want to talk about anything to do with the judicial review. I said, okay, I'm not going to discuss but this page is in my head and I'd like some answers. So I went through those 4 points that I mentioned earlier. And they just looked at each other. Oh, not me, not me. Was it you? Not me. And they're like children in a playground. 5 grown men just looking at each other, not me, not me, not me. And I said, at this stage, it doesn't matter who wrote it. The fact that this was put in an official document for the High Court, and you now just, oh, it's not me. I said, well, it wasn't written by aliens. I said, first of all, you had no information on our mentors. You made an assumption that this is going to be you see 2 black women, you think, oh, it's going to be a black school. I said, have you seen the demographics in Lewisham? All the schools are black schools. So that
And
just didn't stand up.
If they had 2 white women,
That's right.
It's
It's just crazy. I said, if we were 2 white women, would you assume it's going to be a white school?
This is it.
No answers. So the meeting terminated well before 90 minutes because one of them just at the end of it, and she said, oh, just resubmit. I said, well, when is the closing date? Oh, sometime in September. I said, no, there's always a closing date. He said, oh, towards the end of September. I said, are you looking from the 13th to the 30th or the 1st to the 13th? When is the closing date? And he got very vague. When we got out of the DFE, my colleague looked at me and she said, Kay, I can't do this anymore. We've been working this for 6 years. She said, I'm sorry, but I'm going to walk away from this. It's making me ill. And I remember standing outside the DFE with my daughter and watched her walk away, and I thought, right, I'm on my own here now.
Goodness.
So what do I do? Now, the year before, I got an email from a head teacher in Suffolk who had been reading about it in news, and she emailed me and said, when you are successful, I will come and help you through the minefield of information that you'll have when your application is approved. So when I got home, I sent an email to her and I told her what had happened. By this time now, she's now working for an organization in Waterloo that specializes in independent schools. They have independent schools in this country, in Abu Dhabi, in Shanghai, and New York, Boston, whatever. So she invited me I sent the application to her in its entirety, and they had a look through it and said, well, you shouldn't have to reapply. This is actually more detailed and superior than the ones that she had helped 2 schools in Suffolk.
Why am I not surprised?
So when I met with them, she and the head of the organization, he said, okay, this is Michael Gove's email address. The director of free schools, this is her email address. Send them an email, set up a meeting, and we will go with you. I thought, great. I'm still waiting on a reply.
And that was when?
2013.
2013. Okay.
No reply whatsoever.
So where does that stand now, as it were?
For me, I just see them now. I mean, especially politically, they've pressed the self-destruct button. They've lost all credibility. I mean, we've seen the education secretaries ever since then. Each one seemed to be more clueless than the one before because they don't have the relevant experience. They don't know. They have no experience in education management. And the fact that you went to school once upon a time does not make you an expert in education. And they seem to think that because they all went to independent or public schools that, you can go. And every time there's a cabinet reshuffle, you get another clueless wonder who comes along and you think, well, it's not going to work. I mean, the one we have now, I think she's the worst of the lot. She is completely clueless. And, they seem to take pride in being clueless, and they don't realize how crucial it is to be able to manage something as important as education. If you don't have a good education, it screws up the rest of your life because you're either playing catch up or you drop out.
Yeah.
And, they just think, oh, that's all teachers' fault.
Yeah. Or they blame the parents.
Yeah, that's right. There's always some blame on everything, So, yeah, I mean, I watch her now, but that same parent that I called her and I said, well, but we're not going ahead with this, and I'm just moving on with my life. How is your son? And she said, Kay, they've got him in this provision. He's not learning anything. So I said, okay, bring him to me. I gave her my address, and she brought him this Saturday morning. Now, my field is also SEN. So I'm not picking I'm looking at it. I'm not picking up any of these things because she brought his EHCP and I looked at it and it was quite monstrous and I'm not picking up any of this stuff at all. I said, okay, bring him to me on Saturday mornings and I'll teach him English and maths. And he was an absolute delight. I used to call him Dream Baby. He was a dream to work with. And so September, she decided to take the local authority to the tribunal for failing to provide for her son.
Education for son, yeah.
The local authority was so above themselves that they refused to comply, and so they were barred from the tribunal. But because I'd been working with the child since June, I was invited to the tribunal, and there were 3 judges. So I presented, I sent a report ahead, and I presented to the judge the vision for the sort of school that I had in mind. October, we got the results. The judge ruled that the child must be removed with immediate effect from the local authority provision and into my care for the rest of year 6 and into year 7 in the school. And at that point, I panicked. I thought, where's the school going to come from? I'm not going to. So I had to create that school, even if it was just me and this child and nobody else. And I thought, no, I've got to do it. And that's how Enterprise Diamond was born, really, because my dad had a school in Guyana, Enterprise High School. And a lot of the older generation who in this country and Canada and America who are doctors and lawyers all went to Enterprise High School. And even my mom was supposed to be, she got a scholarship to Enterprise High School. My grandmother refused to send her to, oh no, he's a bit fresh. Yes, didn't want to there. But anyway, so, and I chose Enterprise in honor of him, and I kept the diamond to do. So, it was quite unique to me. So to hear 2 years ago, in June 2020, that they were intended to open Enterprise Diamond in September. I thought, hell no, that's not going to happen.
And they haven't, have they?
No, they haven't, okay. No, because they've been blocked. Yes, it's been trademarked. Yeah.
I have one more question to ask you.
Yeah.
I think we definitely have to have you back because there's so much more to discuss because there's a lot more questions I wanted to ask you in terms of your perspective on education and the system as in itself and get your perspective from your wealth of experience. But looking to the future, what kind of initiatives or changes would you like to see in education to promote inclusivity and excellence?
A lot of funding needs to go into it, and training, because schools. First of all, as I keep saying, that the provision for science in primary school is quite poor. And it's very concrete. It's all lots of worksheets. And when they get into secondary school, they have to move from concrete to concept thinking. And that's where it begins to fall apart. Some children, the more able ones can do, but then that's where we get the drop. Because they have to shift their whole way of thinking when they go into secondary school. And suddenly they've got to work out things and think things through, and it begins to fall apart. Some children, by the end of Key Stage 3, they still haven't caught up.
It takes a while for them to
my husband has been an AQA examiner for the last 20 years. And when I see what he marks every single year, without going into any detail, I think at Key Stage 4, it should be optional whether those children do science as an exam. There's nothing wrong with doing it for information. But to put these children through, because when you see what is written, you think, well, have you had 5 years of specialist teaching, or did you Were you absent from school and you've only turned up on the day of the exam because what you write doesn't reflect 5 years of specialist teaching? So I think more and more that that needs to be addressed in schools. But the government has got, it's mandatory. It's mandatory if you've had your posh education, you can't relate to what's going on there. So, and I think,
Or if you want a specific career in the sciences.
That's right, yeah. The children's curriculum needs to be tailored towards credible careers. It's no point the Prime Minister jumping up and saying, well, these Mickey Mouse degrees, you're going to stop them or whatever. Well, you've got to stop the Mickey Mouse teaching towards it. You can't do that and then, these courses exist and then say, well, we're not going to fund you if you're going on a Mickey Mouse. It's also disparaging for those college lecturers, university lecturers to be told, well, what you're teaching is just Disney. It's crazy. So the schools need to tailor the curriculum. They need to be working alongside industry out there, and so that the children have a focus. It's no point everybody in their little cocoon and never the twain shall meet in these silent corridors, and that seems to be the trend. And the DFE thinking that all schools must be like this. No, that's not how children behave.
Yeah.
Because if they're not taught how to interact on a casual basis and everything has to be stage managed, how on earth are they going to cope in the world of work when you have to work on your own initiative 100%. And you're not being taught initiative and everything has to be managed? Yeah. Some of these children have got more responsibilities at home than they have at school.
Yeah.
So you have to start delegating responsibilities within the school. We had, at Selhurst, we had an election for when we decided to go for head boy and head girl, and it was held like a general election. They had to go around and they had to do campaigns, they had to promote themselves, literally sell themselves in assembly, and the children voted by secret ballot.
Things that they're going to have to experience and get jobs and working with people.
They need to have more. Now that, connections was never all that good anyway, the sixth form provision. But then, there isn't anything credible that replaced them when the funding stopped for them. But these children need to be prepared for the world of work from the age of 14. At the age of 16 or 18, it's too late. Because other things get in the way. They need to be shown how to write letters of application. They need to have mock interviews and shown, how to conduct themselves. They need to have more days of when you start dressing for work. If you're going into the world, well, okay, on this Friday, everybody's coming in work clothes.
Yeah.
And then, and they learn to have more peer assessing each other. Okay, well, okay, you're all dressed for work. Now, if you were going for a job and let's say, working in whatever, which one of you and they'd learn to be critical of each other without denigrating? That's right. Okay, who would you give the job? Because what they need to understand is that the minute you walk through the door, you're being assessed.
Of course.
Before you sit down, they have already decided whether you will be in part of their organization. You don't even have to open your mouth. So how are you going to make that impact? How are you going to learn to walk that talk before you even open your mouth? And they need to have more of that kind of confidence building going on in schools. It isn't all curriculum, and then, coming up to now we're coming in from February. Afterwards, it's all sweatshops. Exam practice. It's one way of keeping children quiet. It is a behavior strategy more than anything else. And I'll tell you this because I've been there. Once you say exam practice, you can sit down and drink a cup of tea while everybody's quiet and working. The kids are sweating out, and you can go to sleep under the table and you won't even know.
Except for the ones that are a bit more defiant
and
disruptive, then they deal with them like they're a problem.
That's right.
To dealing with their needs.
So for the school children are leaving schools with lacking the skills that will get them into the world of work. They're not being taught sufficient thinking skills and how to be critical thinkers or anything like that. They're told what to think, and then the exams are just a regurgitation of what you've been taught. I look at some of the textbooks And I just think, this is wrong. I mean, a
It's
couple of
dated as
children I
well.
was
It's not
preparing
relevant.
to go into year 9, so I was doing some year 9 history. And I'm only there because I teach black history as well, so I will do the history bits that are relevant to what they're doing. They don't need to know at the stage of the Industrial Revolution. That's
Irrelevant for them. Well,
completely
there's
irrelevant.
relevance,
Isn't it?
but
So, okay, so we're
yeah.
looking now at empire and trade. And we get to one bit, and I remember source 9 on that page. This is a book that is being used in schools in year 9. And it said, slavery was not altogether negative. The slaves enjoyed a higher standard of civilization and education than their counterparts back in Africa. And I reread that and I said, okay, pens down. We're going to talk about this. Because you too will meet this in school. What's going to be your reaction? And so we have done a lot of black history. So you know the score. So when you see this in school, are you just going to go along with this? Or are you going to put your hand in? We spent about 40 minutes talking about this afterward. And I said, okay, you know the score. How it's going to be? Now, my issue is when you have things like this that are written so innocuously in a book, you have to write that in an exam in order to pass that exam. And then if you decide to take it to degree level, you have to write that.
Exactly, to pass exam. And it's not
And that is all
true.
part of
It's
the
not accurate,
miseducation. There's so many, what is happening in this country, and I suppose in others as well, it's been centuries of deliberate miseducation. And this is why it's coming back to root. That's why home education is now on the rise, because parents are waking up to the fact that what children have been learning in schools and the reality is a whole lot different. I mean, for me personally, when I started delving into black history, I walked away from religion because everything that I was brought up to believe fell apart.
That is so refreshing. You're hearing that from someone from your demographic, your generation, because that is a conversation that happens a lot amongst my generation. It bridges a gap between generations, particularly with Caribbean. But
I just walked away from it, and I used to be church warden, so I started it every Sunday, and I just conversations with the vicar, and there were no answers, and I thought, no, this is just wrong, and I remember one afternoon teaching, and the thing is, I encourage children to, if you've got thoughts running through your head that is puzzling you, just talk about it. The maths or whatever, that we can do that tomorrow. It doesn't matter. Let's talk about. And so we got talking about Adam and Eve and the children Cain and Abel or whatever. And then
upset a lot of parents with those conversations.
Yeah, Cain went off and and one kid said, "But if Eve was the only woman,
make it make sense.
Where did this wife come from?" And at that point, I just panicked. Oh my gosh, I'm getting into waters very deep. He said, "Please don't tell me what I'm thinking." I said, "Listen, I'm going to have to do some research. I'll get back to you."
And that's a child asking that. But then that just goes to show how smart our children are.
That's right.
But Kay, we are running out of time. I'm so sorry.
Like
I said, we're definitely going to have you come back. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Thank you to our amazing guest, Kay Johnston.
Yes.
And please let our viewers know how they can get in touch with you if they want to, find out more about.
Well, I mean, I work with children who are home educated Monday to Wednesday from 10 until 1. Usually at my home because I have got a wealth of resources and I teach a multitude of subjects. It all depends. I rarely do classroom teaching or whatever. I mean, I just have a handful of children at my home at any time. Or sometimes it could just be one or it could just be two. It all depends on what, because as home educated children, they've always got things that are going on. If you wish to contact me, my email address is that's kay.johnston, JOHNSTON 7 @ntlworld.com.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.